Take another look now and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Well, right now it's time for hemp.
It is time for hemp. Of course, from my point of view, it is always time for hemp. But it is the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network, and you are listening to the Time for Hemp Broadcasting Program. And we like to put a spotlight on all the hardworking people up in Canada every Tuesday with my joint host, Kelly Kriston from KDK Distributors. And remember, anytime you hear the word joint on the big broadcast, nearly 2.5 million people all around the world pack their bongs, their pipes, their vaporizers, and take time for hemp. Well, I do want to put a spotlight on the hardworking people up in Canada, and we have Neil Magnuson and Kelly Kriston on there. Neil, did I get your name right?
Sure, yeah, Neil Magnuson.
Absolutely. Well, I went to public school, so I even mispronounce my own name sometimes.
I get all kinds of pronunciations. That's all right. As long as they don't call me late for dinner, I'm happy.
There you go, or call you late for the joint, right?
That's it, right.
Or in Kelly's case, call you late for the vaporizer, huh, Kelly?
You bet. Never late for the vape.
There you go. And you were talking about vapes today, weren't you, Neil?
Yeah, we were at risk of losing our vape privileges here in Vancouver. There was what appears to be kind of a backdoor effort by some of the staff at City Hall to have this bylaw passed to regulate the e-pens for cigarettes. But the language that they put in there, just said e-cigarettes and any other vaporizable materials. So, or vaporizing, that's not the exact language, but in any case, it was very vague language that certainly could include cannabis vapors. And it wasn't innocent, because the way that we figured this out was there was a new dispensary that was opening close to me, and I went in to visit them, and I said, oh, this is going to be your new vapor lounge. And they said, no, we're actually shutting that part of it down. We've stopped the construction on that because the city came and told us that this new bylaw is going to mean that there won't be any more vapor lounges in Vancouver. And I was like, whoa. And so, that got the ball rolling on it, and that was about 10 days ago. And then the hearing, originally we were told the hearing was going to be in 2 weeks, or at least for council to vote on it. And as it turned out, the vote was supposed to be yesterday. Well, we were just getting back from the Prairie Cup and no time to mobilize, but we managed to get it pushed to today. And then today we had David Malmo-Levine and Dana Larson, Corey Peterson, and Jason Fleury and myself all got to speak to the issue to council. And they were quite surprised. They didn't think that it was about cannabis at all until I told them about the event with the city worker there telling the dispensary that. And then the chair said, well, the language in here, it just says e-cigarettes. And I said, well, that's not what I read. And then a little while later during someone else's presentation, she said, oh, Mr. Magnuson, you're right. I see here on the first page, section A, paragraph 2, it says this and that, and you're right, that's very vague and obscure language. And that got all the other councillors, looking at it, and you could see the looks on their faces, and Adrienne Carr in particular assured us that she was going to make sure that the right thing was done, that either that language was stricken from the way the bylaw reads, or that there would be some sort of an exemption put in there for cannabis so that it wasn't included. So a win for us.
Well, what do you think about all that, Kelly?
I think that you're very lucky to be having vapor lounges, because we don't have any here in Calgary.
Yeah.
You guys have had.
I understand. We want to keep that going, right?
Sorry?
I say we want to keep that going. We've established that beachhead here in Vancouver, and we'd like to lead the way, for other people to be able to do the same thing. I know Bill Vandergraaf has his vapor lounge in Winnipeg now. And there's some other ones that have opened up, I think Hamilton and Toronto. So we don't want to have that shut down here. If they were going to manage to shut that down here like this, then I'm sure that would have been used in other jurisdictions to shut them down as well. So we're really glad that we can maintain what we've got going here to try to help other places in Canada achieve the same kind of things.
You bet. I mean, we're way behind the curve here in Calgary because, of course, we don't have a vapor lounge. We don't even have a compassion club. Vapor lounges have been going on since for over 10 years in Toronto and in Vancouver, of course, and even longer than that. Of course, they had smoking lounges. Back in the day when you were allowed to do that indoors, and then of course now they've all switched to vapor lounges. But it seems to me, and it's been a while since I've been in Vancouver again, but the last time I was there seemed to be a lot larger explosion of such type establishments. Is there any particular reason why, and does it continue to increase? The number of establishments?
New ones opening almost daily here. I mean, we've got, at last count, 56 that we're aware of, although there's ones also opening that we're not aware of, that aren't advertising at all. They're just renting a place and opening. And I think what's happened is that the model was established as to how to do this in ways that, give pretty much protection from risking your stuff. And that is to stay within the protocols of established compassion clubs with respect to doctor's notes and a confirmation of diagnosis, and IDing everybody to make sure that, no minors and that everybody's got a proper card. Now, like I say, what they shut down here in Vancouver over the last 2 months, there's certainly been an initiative to try to stop this, or at least address it in some way. They closed down the Jim's weed store on Hastings under the excuse that his product was being resold to minors in the area. And I pointed that out to council today and said that's a bullshit excuse. They don't shut down the liquor store, shut down the pharmacies and go and seize all of their stock. One of the councillors said, well, do you think that the liquor stores should not be prosecuted for having their stuff resold? And I said, well, how can you prosecute somebody for, somebody reselling your thing? I mean, they put up signs that say no reselling to minors, and the compassion clubs do the same thing. So, but the other excuse was that there was plants in the weed store on Kingsway. And I said, there's horticultural stores selling plants all over the city. I mean, those places aren't shut down and having their stock seized, and those plants are all poisonous. If anybody's children gets in and eats just about any other plant, any of the plants in your house or garden, they're gonna get sick. So, and the other excuse was that the products were being marketed to children at the Budzilla store that they raided, and the cookies looked too nice, and there was suckers there. And I said, that's ridiculous, too. Parents that are using edibles, they know enough probably to keep their edibles out of the reach of their children and out of the sight of their children. But even if the children get into it, let's talk about that. And I said that to council. These kids, the parents might be worried about them as they realize that they've been into their stash and that they're not behaving normally, but then they have a really nice night's sleep and they wake up more alert than they have been in days, and there's just no problems after that. There's no health problems with these kids. There's no poster child for this kid got into the edibles and now he's all messed up, he's blind or whatever. So, it was a good ability between the five of us. We gave a lot of information to council today. That's for sure.
Well, that's the way to do it. Of course, you can't. It's the only way to do it. Otherwise, you can't get through to them. I mean, and it's easy to understand why they look at it and they say, "Well, what about this and what about that?" Well, again, like you say, it's the same as anything else. Children, when I was young, I got alcohol when I was a minor. I got tobacco when I was a minor. And these are, of course, as we know, two of the most horrible drugs on the planet. And let's not, forget that how many people are on prescription drugs, whether it be, Oxycontin or Paxil or Valium or whatever, one of the, thousands or tens of thousands of drugs out there that are in people's homes as well. There's just a plethora of it. And minors have always been getting a hold of it. The government has ads on national television showing percentage of kids that get high and on prescription drugs and where they got them from at home.
Yeah, I made those points to council as well. I said, you talk to the poison control people, they'll tell you, kids get into everything. You can't really keep kids out of stuff. But the problems that they have are the kids that get into the stuff that's under your sink, or that's in your medicine cabinet, or in your liquor cabinet. But getting into cannabis does not result in any problems down the road for any of you. But those other substances are very toxic for sure. And, with Budzilla and the cookies that look good, thankfully, social media is a wonderful thing. The Vancouver Police Department, they've got a Facebook page, and they talk about what they do there, and they talked about raiding the store, and they put up pictures of the cookies and the suckers that they had there, and they said it's a public safety issue, and these are attractive to children. So I got to take them to task on that on their Facebook page about that. I said, what's really the most dangerous thing that's going on with our kids is being marketed right at them, is being put into all of their foods. It's the most dangerous and addictive white powder on the planet, and that's refined sugar. And you want to talk about putting on cartoon characters, and you got Frosted Flakes and Lucky Charms, and all the fancy, beautiful crystals on those cereals. Well, those crystals are poisonous. They're killing people at a super high rate, and they're maiming people with the type 2 diabetes and cancers and all the other problems we're having with the too much refined sugar in our society here. And the crystals that are on cannabis, well, they're not poison at all. That's medicine. That's a supplement to your endocannabinoid system. So we've had quite the conversations on social media with the Vancouver Police Department, who answered me back, by the way, and they're paying attention, as I guess they're supposed to do. So the world is changing. We got very interesting times going on here in Canada, here in Vancouver, and around the world. As I also pointed out to council that we've been under siege for decades as a community of people, not willing to accept the government's edict and use alcohol and tobacco, but to use cannabis for all the right reasons. And we've been under siege for a long time, but the tide has turned. The debate is pretty much over. Everyone in society except for Stephen Harper gets it, that we shouldn't be using tax dollars to prohibit this substance. And they got a kick out of that, too. And then there's a real disconnect between us and Stephen Harper.
Yeah, for certain. And then there is a big disconnect between the real world and Stephen Harper. It's he's a man in a land of his own, that's for certain.
Well, he's connected very deeply with the powers that want to exploit and monopolize and manipulate us, the oil companies and the pharmaceutical companies. So because he's so connected to them, he's disconnected from, the rest of Canada and what's right and wrong. These people have been blinded by the lobbyists with all of their leverage, and instead of thinking about the human ethics that they were elected to try to maintain, they're strictly operating on a business ethics model once they get into those positions, and humans be damned, So we need to stop that. It's time to revisit this democracy of ours. It was founded on good principles, I think, or at least they touted them then, and they're still there. But we need to have these public servants limited in what they're able to do, so that they know they can't interfere with anybody unless that person is harming somebody else. They need to be accountable, like everyone else should be accountable. They should be accountable, which would mean that, when you're suspected of having done some damage in our society, you're brought before a wise adjudicator. If you're innocent as you stand there, but as they put evidence and prove that you did damage, that goes on the one side of the set of scales there, and if it's beyond reasonable doubt and all of those other things, there's the intent, then they can balance that damage with a penalty on the other side of the set of scales. Well, I'd like to see our public servants, bound by that same accountability. Because, of course, they're in a very fragile, vulnerable situation as public servants. They hold the public's trust. They don't really have power over us at all. They're still public servants. But they're supposed to hold the public's trust in that they're going to do the right thing for the public. So whenever they bow to the corporate elites, lobbyists, and all the leverage at the expense of the public, well, that's a heinous crime because of how much damage that does. With the sign of a signature on a piece of paper slid under glass and now enforced by policemen with guns, they can protect the interests of like pharmaceutical and oil corporations with cannabis prohibition and other groups. And when you've got millions of Canadians now with criminal records for simple possession of this natural healing non-toxic herb, well, just how much damage is that? So, it's a heinous crime, and they should be accountable. And I'm sorry to ramble on here, but if you'll allow me for a minute, my third aspect of what I expect from our future politicians beyond limited and accountable would be transparent, so that they don't get to have these meetings behind closed doors with these lobbyists and all the leverage. That they have a small video crew following them around, from the time they leave their home until they get home at night, so we can all tune into MP Watch and see who they're meeting with and what they're talking about. And we get a different type of human being in those positions of public servants if we had those things in place, and they would really care about protecting the public and know that their job is to keep us all free from being exploited and monopolized by these corporate groups.
Oh my God! Now there's a concept, an honest politician. Holy shit! Never thought about it like that.
I think in my idealism, I believe it used to be like that. I think that you'd walk down the street with your son and you'd say, "Hey, Johnny, there's public servant so-and-so, and he's a really good man, and he's sacrificing for the public good." But we sure don't think that way these days. We know that they're pawns for the corporate elite, and the biggest thing we know about politicians is they're going to lie to you on their way into getting into office.
Well, I'll tell you, here in America, when you type into your GPS system that you want to go and have, you want to find an honest politician, the response is you can't get there from here.
Yeah, that's what they're famous for now. And that's really, really sad, because people should understand how powerful and wonderful this thing called freedom is, how necessary it is. It's as basic to human needs as air and water and love. And we deserve to have it. Our forefathers have spent time with bullets sailing over their heads in ditches to try to, free us from these tyrants and these dictators and even the kings and the queens and the pharaohs. We don't deserve to have rulers like that telling us we can't do what we want and we have to do what we don't want. We deserve to have actual freedom, where these people that are public servants, their duty is to make sure that you get to be you, and you're different than anybody else. But as long as you're not hurting somebody else, you're free to do what you want, and you don't have to do anything. Just like you have a responsibility that somebody's not free if they're being bullied in front of you. We all have responsibilities. It's natural. I don't think it's anything that has to be in law, but it probably is there too. But you need to intervene if there's a crime being committed that some big person is exploiting and taking away from some vulnerable person. So I think if we all had that mentality and we all understood what freedom was and what bullying was, then maybe we would demand better here. But we're kind of like frogs thrown into tepid water and then boiled, as opposed to thrown into boiling water in which we would jump out of right away, right? Like everybody's half asleep here thinking that this is normal. We all just, we're born into this. Just obey and you'll get along, and, you won't get penalized. Well, that's not what's going to cut it in the future here, because these people really have nasty agendas planned for us, and with the technology they got in place now with drones and surveillance and cell phones and stuff, if we don't get freedom established quickly within this generation, then the threat of terrorism is going to lock us all down, and anybody that is contrary to what the state has to say is going to be considered a terrorist. And if they get everybody so scared that you're not going to, you're going to rat out your neighbor if you think that they're anything to do with against the government,
well,
then they could do it, man.
Speaking of, I just got a text message from Homeland Security telling me that we need to take a commercial break. And so,
well, it's good that they're paying attention, because somebody needs to for these commercial breaks.
Yeah, and so I'm going to ask them to help me find my June 12th emails during the commercial break, and then we're going to listen to a song about how fantastic marijuana is, and then come back and find out what kind of photographs they've got on me here at Time for Hemp. You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with
with your friends.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
You get me too high. I overanalyze. If you've ever been too high, then you can sympathize. You get me too high. And I start to fly. If I said some silly thing, then that's the reason why. Shiva, my sativa. You get me too high. Hey Shiva, got a fever. You get me too high. You get me too high. It's funny how the sky and each cloud and every moment seem to drift right by. You get me too high. I've never been this shy, but I swear I love you, baby, till the day I die. Shiva, my sativa. You get me too high. Hey Shiva, got a fever. You get me too high. You get me too high. I overanalyze. If you've ever been too high, then you can sympathize. You get me too high. And I start to fly. If I said some silly thing, then that's the reason why. Shiva, my sativa. You get me too high. Hey Shiva, got a fever. You get me too high.
I don't know if you can get too high. It's like being too pretty, too rich, or having too much chocolate in the house. I just don't think it's possible. But God knows I try here at Time for Hemp. And I want to thank Kelly for being on the big broadcast today. Kelly, before we go back to our joint conversation, I know you do something nice with your joint team on behalf of the medical marijuana movement, and I will hush up and let you share that.
You bet. If you're a regular listener, you're well aware of our program. It's free. Yes, for those of you that aren't listening so intently, I now got your attention. We give away a quality vaporizer once a month. It's really, really easy to qualify. You must be a cannabis medicinal patient, and you must be alive, and you must reside somewhere in the world. And you must not be able to afford one, or maybe you're on a disability pension, veterans pay, welfare, whatever the case may be, long-term disability, anything like that, it makes no difference. We know that a lot of medical patients, they're in this situation, and a lot of them, of course, they have trouble being able to afford their medication. Actually, for the vast majority of them, the amount of money they receive in a month, I'm sure it's very difficult, or I know it's very difficult, just to pay rent and buy food, let alone try and purchase some medication, and certainly never, a vaporizer, no doubt, is a dream on their list. And these are the people that we're looking for. So if you're listening and you are one of these patients, or any of you that are listening, you probably know somebody that could really use the help and get a free vaporizer. So it's super simple. All you have to do is send me an email to Kelly, Kelly, at kdkwholesale.ca. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and and we'll get your name in, and hopefully we draw you for a free vaporizer. And yes, it's free. We pay to ship it right to your door.
And you can't beat that. That is wonderful, Kelly. That is just very gracious. And I know that there's patients out there that can certainly benefit from such a wonderful offer. So let's hope somebody makes it a point to write in and take advantage of that. Now, we'll let you get back to also your joint conversation with our joint guest about what's happening up there with the Happy Harper government. I'll tell you, every time I hear about the loving approach that man has to the community around him, it just makes me want to toss my cookies.
Oh, man. He can't be gone soon enough.
Well, it's a year now, right? I think the fall of 2015. I know it's 2015. Is it the fall?
Yeah, it's supposed to be October 19th, but he hasn't followed the guidelines yet. So, he could call a snap election if he ever thinks he's got an advantage going up here or going ahead here. So we're ready for it any time. I think that's got to be the day. The problem is in Canada we're a little bit divided, but maybe Trudeau can coerce some of the Greens and some of the NDPs enough that we can do this. I don't know how they feel about a coalition, but they should all get behind what he's doing right now. He's got a real shot at getting Harper out of there, and I think that any way we can get Harper out of there, we should do it, because another Harper term, Canada won't look the same ever again.
No, without a doubt, we've regressed so much so fast. It's going to take.
He'll go for some form of decrim. That's what he'll do.
You bet. Well, of course, they weren't even looking at that. Wasn't even on the table until they saw the public reaction that the Liberal Party received from announcing that if elected, they would go to or move towards complete legalization. And, initially, of course, they pounced all over him and this, that, and the other thing. Oh, my God, it was just going to be the worst possible thing on earth. And then now you see it starting to sneak in. Oh, well, we're thinking about decriminalization. And, they're sort of putting the feelers out there because they saw what happened. The Liberals garnered a tremendous amount of support from the Canadian public once they released that information.
Yep, so they'll come out with some form of decrim that's going to be worse than what we have now. Because
decrim isn't going to work, in my opinion, but at least it's a reasonable step forward. At least it shows.
I don't think Harper's version would be. I don't believe Harper would have a reasonable step forward type of decrim. I think that there'd be fines for people possessing, and all the people that are growing or dealing. It's still going to be mandatory minimums and harsh penalties for those people in his world of decrim. And with more fines instead of a criminal record and jail time for people possessing, except the poor people, of course, who can't pay their fines, and then they end up with criminal records for it anyway. But for the other people, the cops are going to be way more willing to pay their mortgages doing that job of just giving people tickets than they are right now. They're not too happy having to give people criminal records for it. So I really would not like to see a Harper version of decrim in Canada here.
Well, I don't want to see a Harper version of anything anymore, to tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
I have plans to. I have a big van. It's a Sprinter van, so those of you that are familiar with them, they're quite large. And I'm going to get a big sign on the side, and it's just going to say, "Please vote ABC, anything but conservative."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's time. I mean, we have the power. I mean, it's been an illusion for a long time, this democracy of ours, because the powers that be really have such financial advantage with their backers and things. But there is some slim possibility that if the whole bunch of people got out and actually voted, and had something to vote for, that maybe we could have a different world here, and that's what we're counting on with Mr. Trudeau there. And it's not just Mr. Trudeau, it's a lot of other people that are working in behind him, and I know a lot of those people very well, the people that wrote the new draft that they're following for legalization. I'm very familiar with those people, and they're all very good people, and they're going to keep that ship steered the right way. And it's all about freedom, and it's all about people having the right to grow their own plants and getting rid of the criminal underground in doing that, and reasonable access. So, yeah, we could do this. It's possible if the vote isn't split amongst the left.
Well, it's a democracy, so of course we're going to have people who don't think the same way that we do, which is a great thing. And supposedly the wonder of a democracy is that the majority gets to rule. The only problem is with our split in political parties and our geographic splits and our language splits and this split and that split, when it comes down to it, they have a majority government elected by 15% of the people in the country. I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have a quick fix. I like the fact that we have more than two main political parties, like our friend Casper down to the south. It's nice to have those options, but with the limited population and the excess options, it's not that difficult to get a few buttload of people together in your riding and get them down to vote for you, and you get in. I mean, it's a shame that that's the way it is, and that we don't get a larger percentage of people out to vote. But there's a lot of people here in Alberta working. I know that some of our stores have information right available in their stores. Did you know if you vote for the Liberals that they are looking at legalizing cannabis, right? And it's encouraging a lot of the younger crowd, hopefully, to get out there and vote. And we don't need to rely on the younger crowd anymore. I'm in my 50s, and we're long past when it come to the forefront in the 60s. We all know it's been around for thousands of years, but it really became well known in the 60s with the hippies and peace and free love and all that kind of stuff. Well, I grew up in the 70s, or late 60s and 70s, and it never changed in the 70s, and it didn't change in the 80s. And the people that were going to university and consuming cannabis in the 60s are now either retiring or they're the CEOs and that kind of stuff. So now we have that full, all generations. And the people that generation before me, my parents, they see peers that are using cannabis medicinally and it working effectively for them. And even though they grew up in the era of reefer madness, a lot of those people's from that era, their mind has now changed through education. So I honestly believe we easily have a majority if we were given the vote. And I strongly believe in a democracy that we should have, a few things that people get to vote on directly, things that are very, very important and people are passionate about, whether it be abortion or gay rights or whatever the case may be. I think the really, really important stuff should be, the public should be able to vote, period. These are the most important issues that are pressing, and these are the things that we as the people get to vote on. And then let the government hopefully run the rest of things and not do it too badly.
I agree that the majority should be able to vote on different aspects of how we run our society, but I don't think that the majority of people get to overrule the natural freedom and rights of any individual. I believe in individual rights, and those things. I don't think morality should be part of it with respect to that. There's lots of other mechanisms that we use in society to deal with those types of things, peer pressure and just what's accepted. But for governments to have people vote on things that really are none of anybody else's business, that's another flaw in our democracy. So.
Yeah, democracy.
51% don't get to overrule the rights of the 49, right? In my opinion,
democracy is a wonderful.
That shouldn't be on the table.
It's not.
That just shouldn't be on the table.
It's definitely far from perfect. What can you do? We all have ideas, but it hasn't changed. So let's look for change. How can we change government to be more effective and be doing the things more that the public wants, not what they think the public wants or what they think they should do, or who's got the biggest donation in their pile to get reelected, that's who they listen to. I mean, it's supposed to be democratic, but let's face it, it's semi-democratic at best, and it needs improvement from top to bottom. And we should look at of course, making a little improvement each and every election. Let's change this, and let's try that, and let's do this, and have a mandate to change a couple things. And how can we improve? Well, let's start here. And you know what? I bet a few generations down the road, things could actually be very democratic and run a lot better than it is today.
I agree. We should be able to do this. With a few different things. It's time for a bit of a reset. Maybe a few new founding fathers to come together and say, okay, but yeah, the majority can't overrule the rights of the majority. This is what freedom actually means, and this is what the role of government is supposed to be. And here are the enemies of our system, and that would be the corporate elite that would try to get laws that would protect their monopolies and their ability to exploit. Another way that I would like to see happen in the future is one more level of regulatory board, not 2 and 3 more levels, but these regulatory boards that get set up to try to protect the public from that very thing that I just said, with exploitation and monopolies and things, and harm being done. They constantly get co-opted by the very people that they're and very groups that they're supposed to be regulating. So if there was one more body of regulators that oversaw all the other regulatory bodies to make sure that co-option doesn't happen, and keep it very clear that this is the enemy of freedom, this is the people that the groups we're trying to, make sure that they stay in line, because business is just business, right? I mean, if they all they want to do is maximize their profits, that's all. So that's just what they're trying to do. And if they do that in ways that don't harm people and exploit people, then that's fine. And that's what regulatory bodies are supposed to be there for, is to make sure that they don't have child labor and paying too few dollars and all the other things that they will try to do if they can, because that's just what business does. Then the system can work. But like I say, right now, those groups that are supposed to be regulating the corporations, they get corrupted by those corporations. So we need to have another level watching out for that, and to make it very clear to the public, to everybody, that that's what we're trying to avoid happening. But right now, it's all just kind of wink nudge. The ex-chairman of the corporation is now the chairman of the regulatory body, and somehow nobody does anything about that or realizes who he's really serving. So that's another fix I think could happen.
Serving, that's a funny word. They're serving their own good is what they're doing. But I've said several times on the show, and in the couple of years or 3 years that I've been lucky enough to be hanging around and talking on the air, it's really, I think a fairly large percentage of politicians do have in their mind that they want to do the right thing and they want to help, and they're going into public office because they want to make a difference. But once they get elected, and as I like to call it, belly up to the trough, it's really difficult not to feed. And when you have...
Well, they have to toe the party line. That's one of the flaws, is that they all seem to have to toe the party line. And the other thing is all those good politicians, and there's lots of them, I know that, they don't get into those positions of influence. They don't get to be the justice minister and the health minister and those real positions of influence where they could actually change things. They make sure that the people that get those positions are making firm promises.
What they need to do.
Yeah.
Not what they're supposed to do.
Exactly. But, we have the foundation there. I mean, and the mechanisms are in place. If we add a few more and tweak it here and there and do a bit of a reset, we could have a fine way to live. But right now, it's screwed. I had a couple of Vancouver police tell me the other night after shaking me down because I was sitting out in front of my son's place just having a conversation, and they showed up because somebody said maybe that car was being stolen. Well, it was my car, and we were in front of my son's place. But then I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Once it was, okay, you can, you're good here. I said, yeah, but I'm mad at you guys. What are you doing, busting the Budzilla dispensary earlier today? Like, why? That's crazy, And then so right away he's like, oh, well, do you use marijuana? Do you have a license to use marijuana? I can smell marijuana. Can I see your license? Oh, this license is expired, even though I told him it was going to be expired, but I was still valid under the Allard, and on it went. Well, after about an hour with these guys, they finally confirmed that I was right and that I was legal and it was all good. But, they agreed that, the world is really fucked and everything's been corrupted, and all they're doing is paying their mortgage, just doing their job, and, we can't expect them to change the world and blame it on them because, they're just doing their job, right?
They're just on the front line, and they have rules and regulations and laws to enforce, and that's what they're supposed to do. It's not whether they agree with those laws, rules, and or regulations, but it's their mandate is to enforce those laws. And yeah, the people on the front line are hopefully there to help us most of the time, but I do really have a lot of respect for those guys because let's face it, most of the time, well, all of the time, wherever they go and whatever they do in their job, they're dealing with people at their worst, whether they're drunk and in a fight or drunk and having beat the wife or someone was raped or someone was robbed or someone was beaten or it's a car accident and someone's in, this is the type of stuff that's their job that they deal with all day, every day. And, it can't be easy. I don't care what anybody says. It's certainly not easy. And without them, we'd be in big trouble. So, they're necessary as much as anything else, but change through them is not, most of them are willing to change. I'm sure if you took a secret survey of every single police officer in the country and asked them which is the law that they least want to enforce or think should be enforced, which is outdated or passé or whatever you want to call it, I'm pretty sure that cannabis would be at the top of that list.
Yeah, me too. And I know that these people on the front line, the police officers, I also have great respect for them. I know that, or at least in my vision of them, they're people that when they were growing up, they had a desire to stop the bully from picking on the little guy, and that's what they thought the job was going to be. So I think that these laws really hurt them as well. They would be heroes in our community if they didn't have to enforce these laws. If all they were worried about was stopping people from being harmed and having their property stolen, we would all really respect them and they would be heroes here. But we know that they're helping to run a protection racket for the corporate drug companies and the fuel companies, and that's why cannabis is illegal. And that's most of what their job is, too. I know they do these other things, although they're pretty much in mop-up. They almost never get to stop crimes in progress. They show up after the fact and take fingerprints and maybe try to track somebody down. They're mostly people that give people, that hand out fines and collect money for the government, and that's how they're seen. And they're not really respected as they should be, especially because of the drug prohibition. I made a mistake sort of at the end of when they were, we were all good now, and I'd educated the heck out of them for an hour. And he made that comment about, we're just a couple of cops. You're not going to do anything by convincing a couple of us beat cops of anything. We're just doing our job, And I said, with no offense, but just doing your job didn't fly at Nuremberg. And we said, oh, now you've done it. I'm taking offense to that. And so I had to quickly, explain myself and talk about, well, when you've got millions of people that are running around trying to live their lives with criminal records for possession, well, that's a huge cost to each of those people and each of their families. But there's way more than that. There's people in jail. There's people that have lost their parents to these laws and so many other things. So my son said that I barely scraped by with with explaining. But he was you're not going to compare getting high with the people burning in furnaces, are you?
Yeah, well, there is some connection, but it's there is similarities in probably in most things in life. But yeah, that's a big stretch, that one.
Well, I got a big stretch.
They're executing people in Indonesia and other countries around the world for just over 2 ounces of weed. So, I mean, it's not that far a stretch. If you read the book about the 50 worst cases of women imprisoned in the United States for nonviolent crimes, they're all drug crimes pretty much, where they took the fall because they didn't want to finger somebody else who was really responsible, a son or whatever. I mean, it's so horrific. I don't know about burning people in furnaces. That's so horrific, but this drug war is extremely horrific as well, and it's not that far of a stretch. No offense meant to anybody for sure.
Well, I got to pay our bills here so that we can stay on board, and then we're going to come back and pick up where we left off here at Time for Hemp. You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
Serious Seeds is your source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic, Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Well, now, chocolate cake makes my poor stomach ache, and all those pills are too much for me to take. I don't like cocaine 'cause it makes me all uptight, but coffee and reefer makes me feel alright. Crystal methyl.
Yeah, baby, coffee and reefer does make me feel all right, and so does hanging out with my friends up in Canada. They are a great group of people who are dedicated to making the world a better place. We got about 6 minutes here at the end of the broadcast, so I'm going to hush up and let my friends continue on with their joint conversation.
While I smoke my joint.
Yeah. We were going to, with the last little segment of the program, we were going to talk a little bit about the Prairie Cup, which is was the 4th annual one just this past weekend in wonderful Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And it's growing, of course, each year. It gets a little bigger and a little better. Unfortunately, I wasn't there this year, but I suspect that I'll be there next year. Or we always had representation, but there's only a couple of us that go each year, so it wasn't my turn, but I may be there next year. And I know that Jeff puts on a great event, and everybody goes to a lot of effort, of course, to make these things happen. And it's great to see the support, and in a place like Saskatchewan, it's wonderful to see all this stuff happening around us, and for us guys here in Alberta, there's nothing going on. It's a shame. Maybe you can let us in on a little of the event and what went on in Saskatoon.
Yeah, a little ways down the road from Alberta there in Saskatoon. Like you say, the 4th annual Prairie Cup, right in the heart of RCMP territory. I was there for the second one, not last year and not the first one, but it's grown a lot since the second one. It was pretty much a sellout this year. All the judges' packs were sold, and a really large, good group of people, very well put together, well organized, constant entertainment and education during all the days, but really an epic cannabis cup in that there was 27 different strains. There was only 2 of them maybe that didn't kind of measure up to the other 25, and those 25, they all tasted and worked so good. We had to judge them in 6 different categories for look and smell and taste and smokability and overall satisfaction and the medical effect. And that's a really tough challenge, I'll tell you, to taste and sample 27 strains. We got her done. Myself and my 2 compatriots, one of my friends in Saskatchewan that we stayed with, he got a judge's pack. And my other friend that went there and my girlfriend, the 4 of us, we shared all of that. And that was really tough work. And in the end, a very tight competition. There was Saskatchewan growers that won again. Tim from Head to Head. Darren won, I think, first place in Indica with his grape gum. That's some B&B hydroponics in Regina. So there was some local, or at least some provincial growers representative. There was lots of BC representatives there as well, and some others from Toronto. Just an excellent event for sure.
Yeah.
Historic too, right?
Sorry?
Very historic, I think, that we managed to do that without any interference at all from the local authorities or the provincial RCMP. Brave people come in there to break the law and consume cannabis and share it amongst themselves. I think this really leads the way into the good future if we can do this in Saskatoon, and pretty soon maybe we'll be doing it in Calgary.
Yeah, well, we did do one back in 2008. We did one here in Calgary. We had a Cannabis Cup, and it was a one-day event. There was 10 samples. It was great. There were 250 tickets available to the public. They were snapped out. We could have doubled, tripled, quadrupled that, no doubt, no problem. It was a wonderful event, and I was one of the organizers, and we've since tried to put one on, but it's extremely difficult to get a venue. We wanted to go, obviously, make it a little bigger because the 250 people was fairly small, and it really, it just didn't get out there. I mean, people are still asking us to this day, and that's 6 years ago, when you're going to do it again. It's the difficulty is finding a venue that you can hold an event like that at, that's willing to allow you to do it, and of course is smoke friendly. Well, that's near impossible. So, it's look for it in the future. It's always in the back of our mind that we'd like to do another one, and we know the support is there, and hopefully sooner than later is all I can say, because we definitely had a blast. It was a spectacular event and went over so well. It was over the top. It was really awesome.
Well, we got to wrap it up here. We're down to
open your cup.
We're down to our last minute. So, Neil, you want to give a shout out to a URL?
CannabisCulture.com. Why not go there and support the boys of Cannabis Culture? We're doing fine work here and changing the world. That's my shout out.
And Kelly?
For those of you medical patients that could use a free vaporizer, Kelly, Kelly, KDKWholesale.ca. Love to hear from you.
And remember, we are no longer just a one-man show here on the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. We have over 40 hosts producing over 65 hours a week of original broadcast about the need to end prohibition. And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Look at all that money, the money that they spend. Take another look and spend some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes.
New study reports that 1/4 of all school children have used illegal drugs before reaching high school.
And that's the major concern. Other recent studies show that the younger children are when they begin smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, or using marijuana, the more likely they are later to become addicted to hard drugs like heroin, cocaine, and crack.
Hemp is a safe drug. Hemp, marijuana, cannabis has the lowest toxicity of any drug known to man. Tobacco killed approximately 400,000 people. in America. Alcohol, 150,000. When no one in the long history of mankind has ever died from marijuana that wasn't shot by a cop.
See, I need an OZ of the OG Kush, so I can concentrate and bubble, stripping the Afghani bush as I clip and manicure almost each and every cola, slinging ounces to the shop, trying to be a high roller because it sound like Yola. Plus it's legal in Cali. You can find it in the club or on the street or in the alley or a hemp rally. You even see it on the news. Cash and sticker all natural. Which one will you choose? If you snooze, you lose. Better get your ass a car so you can have a quarter pound and 7 plants in the yard. And if you're getting pulled over, they giving it back. No charge, no harassment. They gotta return your sack. Take heed to what I say, cause I won't say it again. No, not from the hands of my chinny chin chin. You can smoke it, you can eat it, it'll never be defeated. It made $16 billion last year, and so we need it.
We need a OZ, all that medical OG. At the Cannabis Club, I can copper QP. We need a OZ, all that medical OG. At the Cannabis Club, I can copper QP. Make it funky, take a checker from the neck up, you in the word of green. When I crumble, I won't fumble if you know what I mean. Let me tell you about the time I went down to the bus shop. Picked up the fat sack, then we rolled it like non-stop. Fat blunts and Casper, some widow makeup. It's a one-hit coma, I need defibrillator. Bless my chest like I'm punched from Chuck Liddell. I'm choking on this top grade, yeah, I can tell that the goodie is good and the fluffy is right to sell. Got a hash up in my brownies, THC up in my cells. The alcohol kills you, so I stick with the herb. The one to legalize it, make it sound absurd. Cause everybody gotta have it, I believe in liberty. To the sun, air, water, soil, and seas. Cut the greed, my prescription's nature made. Drug company flip the script cause they trying to get paid. We need a OZ, all that medical OG. At the Cannabis Club, I can copper QP. We need a OZ, all that medical OG. At the Cannabis Club, I can copper QP. Make it fucking.
Where you from? Southern California, go to the store, get the weed at the corner. Show love, get 2 dubs for the price of 1. That's just a burn at the crack of the sun. What you smoke? Something post. What you choking? Approaching the roaching. Now I'm talking. Blunts I dissect. Afghani bubba, blueberry train wreck. OG of the whole P and the green crack with some white widow. Got your vision going black. Got the skunk in the trunk. It's the funk that'll make a punk feel like he's sunk to a chunk. Sinister black, hand me the sativa with the blunt and the lighter, watch me relieve ya. With some indica from the homie cash flow, cause the West Coast carries more than a stash load.
We need a OZ, all that medical OG. At the Cannabis Club, I can copper QP. We need a OZ, all that medical OG. At the Cannabis Club, I can copper QP. Make it funky.
And it's hemp for medicine. Cannabis has great medicinal value for easing pain, relieving stress, treating illnesses such as glaucoma, asthma, nausea, epilepsy, migraine, wasting syndrome from AIDS or anorexia, arthritis, multiple sclerosis, and beyond. Hemp is the best, safest medicine. You live longer if you smoke hemp than people that do no drugs at all. You live 8 to 24 years longer than people that use alcohol and tobacco. So by those standards, you'd have to be out of your mind not to smoke hemp.